Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this week's episode of the Sensei Playbook podcast, marketing strategy for the dealer world to do less and make more. We've got a treat in store for you today, none other than Larry Feldman of Career Changers. This is a career car sales and marketing trainer. He's making differences all over the world. He's a little bit Don Rickles. He's a little bit George Burns. He's a little bit interesting. I think you're going to like him. Stay tuned.
Welcome to the Sensei Playbook, the ultimate how-to podcast for growing and amplifying your brand within the digital world's 3-second landscape. Join Bill Courtwright and Chris Snellgrove as they discuss the right tools and strategies for building the best online marketing strategy for your business. Tune in to leading business leaders who share information and impart inspiration on providing smooth customer experience and successfully scaling your venture. This is your chance to achieve rapid growth in the highly competitive online market. Let's get this episode started with your hosts, Bill and Chris.
Larry, this is typically the first question I ask, and it goes like this. Marketing today is not about the products we sell, but rather the stories we tell. Larry, what's your story?
Well, my story is pretty simple. I got into the car business by accident, which is what happens to most people. It turned out I had an aptitude for sales. I wound up being number 2 in the country for Cadillac. I wound up being a partner at the dealership. When we sold it, somebody asked me to do them a favor with recruiting and training. I did. They were horrendous. So I started my own company, Career Changers USA. And after 4 years of sales training and making a lot of friends and recruiting and making a lot of money and just having fun, a guy in Sarasota said, Larry, we got 20 salespeople. You hired and trained 15 of them. And all top 10 salespeople are guys you hired and trained. Can you find me service people? So, of course, I lied and said, sure, no problem. How hard can that be? Called my local headhunter. He wanted way too much money for a tech because people don't stay the way they did 30 years ago. I adjusted my prices accordingly. I might be a little too cheap. And that was 7 years ago. And now I'm in 200 dealers across the country. My philosophies are simple. Why show up if you're not going to have fun? If you're going to be there, you might as well give your best and live each day like you're dying because you're dying. That's all.
None of us are getting out of here alive.
No, that's and Lord knows we've tried multiple fronts.
Yeah. Where did you get your start, Larry? What part of the world?
I'm a Philadelphia guy, and my car career started in Trenton, New Jersey, or as we like to call it, scenic Trenton, New Jersey. Very pretty territory to get stabbed
in. Wow. I can relate, not to Trenton, but my bride, she is from South Jersey, big Eagles fan, Phillies fan, Flyers fan. And so that
means she doesn't break for Dallas Cowboys fans. It's perfect.
No, or that team that plays in Washington.
They've almost become irrelevant, and then the guy that owned the Sixers still owns them, bought into them. So it's a long way off from the days of George Allen and Joe Gibbs.
Wow, you're not kidding. I can remember those. The glory years of the '80s. Oh boy, that was fun. But the Eagles did bust out the throwbacks last week. Everyone seems to love those Kelly green jerseys.
It's because when you're done all the hype and the nonsense, it's all about the lines. And we have the best offensive and defensive line in the league. We'll have a problem in a couple of years when Kelsey and Lane Johnson get out because they are incredibly good at what they do. Not kind of good, incredibly good. Because, when you see a guy on ESPN dancing in the end zone and caught the touchdown, they don't show you the fullback or the guard that held the block for a fraction of a second that allowed him to make the completion. It's all about blocking and tackling. It's why Lombardi was still better than Belichick despite all the hype, because everybody hit their blocks. That's how they could run the Lombardi sweep.
Hey, speaking of blocking and tackling, we believe here at Reputation Sensei that a business is typically founded upon that business's reputation. The business is not what you say it is, but rather what your customers tell future customers that it is. What do you think is the importance of a reputation marketing strategy to today's automotive professionals?
I think it's the same as it's been for the last 100 years. Only now it's so much easier to disseminate negative or positive reviews. It's all about the perception. Can I give you a quick history lesson? And if I bore you, just tell me to shut up. If you look at people that really change the world, they alternately get criticized by the conservatives and the liberals, or the liberals and the conservatives. Right? Ralph Nader was evil to every conservative when he wrote Unsafe at Any Speed. And then every liberal hated him when he ran against Gore and siphoned off votes, and they thought that gave the edge to Bush. Well, Henry Ford gave every one of his workers a $5 a day work pay. And every single business owner said, this is a disgrace. You're ruining the businesses. The whole world's changed. He said, I just want the people to be able to afford what they're building. I mean, pretty logical, right? And then later, when they tried to unionize, he became like the most hated guy. So it really all comes down to the same thing. Advertising is irrelevant. All these things that people agonize over, the leads and this and that, are nonsense. Everybody you know knows 5,000 people, Bill. They know everybody their mother knows, their father knows, who they worship with, who they play ball with, who teaches their kids. And they all have one thing in common. They don't like car salespeople, right? If I told you you sound like a used car salesman, it's not a compliment. But they love you. And when you combine that with that, other than in states like Ohio and Virginia, you can write a referral, bird dog fee. How could you ever not be busy? And when I get young guys and train them, I say, listen, I'm not trying to lecture you. I'm just saying, if you're going to be somewhere for 8 hours, doesn't it make sense to look at your iPhone, or God forbid you wear a watch, and say, hey, it's time to go home, rather than be bored all day? So your reputation's everything. Listen, reputations. Here's how ephemeral reputations are. I'm assuming both you and Chris, because I've done it. I bet you everybody that goes to the movies has done it. You go to see the hot movie and it's sold out. And you say to your wife, your wife and your girlfriend, Chris told me you're very liberal, Bill. And you say, well, we're already here. Let's go see this movie. And your wife says, well, they said that movie was terrible. Well, we're already here. We'll get some popcorn. How many times do we come out of the movie and go, that movie was great? What movie were they talking about? So the concept is, your reputation is everything. Because if people like you, not only will they buy from you, they'll pay more to buy from you. So to not understand your reputation and not realize how important it is deadly. And the problem is, as car salesmen, as car dealership owners, and as human beings, we're short-sighted. We don't tend to think ahead. We don't tend to realize. I'm at the dealership where I absolutely dominated in sales and wound up being a part. And the GM, I won't mention a name, is leaving, and the operator says, boss, you have a call. And he says, tell him I left. And I thought, how stupid is that? If they want to buy 3 cars and the money's burning a hole in their pocket, they'll go buy from somebody else. What if they have a small problem and you solve it, you're a hero, and you don't solve it by overnight they stew. Now they're so furious they never want to talk. So what is your reputation? Guys that talk about me say I'm crazy, because I am. I got more energy than anybody, which I believe I do. And then I always answer my phone. Now, the third thing shouldn't get you a trophy. Everybody should answer their damn phone. Try calling 100 people other than Larry Feldman and see who answers their phone. So what's my reputation? It's important enough to me to pick up the phone if you call. Is that complicated? If they don't respect the dealership, if they don't like the way they're treated, you're in trouble. And that doesn't start with the salesperson. That starts with the guy that owns the place and the GM and scours through. It's got to be not, here's what I said, but I don't do. It's got to be that kind of thing. You mentioned before we came on the air that the gentleman that told you should have me on the show, because if nothing else, you get some entertainment value for your dollar, liked me. Well, I didn't dazzle them with any nonsense, because I'm not a technically oriented person. We had fun, and they believed I was sincere. So how are you going to beat, in a world where everybody's ignorant, everybody's vulgar, how are you going to beat funny and sincere? That's the reputation I want to have. I just want people to say the guy worked as hard as he could. He was a little nuts, and I like it when he calls. So to me, reputation is everything. And by the way, they can try to take it away from you, but they can't. Maybe the wishy-washy, fickle people will blow over. But you can't come up to me and talk bad about my friends, because I'm going to say, Bill, I love you. Shut up. That's all.
That's right. That's that Trenton.
Yeah, there it is. There, yeah. No, and then if you go a little farther, it's forget about it. That's
forget about it. I was about to say the same thing. I'm like, hey, it's Trenton. Forget about it. That's all right.
Do you know Ali Rida, Larry?
Mm-hmm. Sure. He works with a very good buddy of mine, Damian Boudreaux. Terrific guy.
Damian is a good friend of mine as well. He actually, yeah, he is good people. He dated my sister. Oh wow, going back in the '90s, and I got left with him. So when they split up, I got him in the separation. Great guy. Yep, Damian's good people. He's going to be on the show soon. I just contacted him last week, so he's.
Would you please tell him that I said hello?
I will. Yep.
So let me ask you something, Larry. You talked about some things that I know Chris and I agree with. The reputation, the wherewithal, the give a rip that we talk about. But if you're a general manager, general sales manager, or even an HR person, someone who's ultimately responsible for the culture or operationalizing these concepts within the walls of an established or brand new dealership, what advice would you give those folks?
Get an electric cattle prod. That might be the most effective way of getting people's attention. What you need to do is look in the mirror and realize what you say and what you do has results. I'm a historian. I'm a little crazy, but I do pay attention. And I'm a big fan of George Washington and Martin Luther King. These are two guys that changed the country, and they both led from the front. When Washington was conducting battles, a lot of times he had no ammunition, and he had the worst equipped, worst clothed army you could possibly imagine, going against possibly the best organized army, certainly the best organized navy. But he led from the front. He didn't say, go up the hill and I hope you don't get killed. And King never said, there's a lot of racists in this particular state. Good luck. He always led from the front. So when you lead from the front, when you show, again, go back to my GM. Yeah, tell him I left. Oh, great. Put the call right there. All my customers are important to me. And all the salespeople hear that. And what do they think? All my customers are important.
Yeah, it sounds like lead by example.
The other thing that I would suggest for every general manager out there is call me immediately, and I'll come in and straighten out your dealership by bringing some energy and enthusiasm. And I'll overcharge you in case you've forgotten how to handle gross profits. It's a public service that I do wherever I can.
Profit is not a bad word.
No, unless you're Bernie Sanders, and let it be known that I'm a conservative.
That's awesome. That is incredible.
But what do the guys, like going back to Ali Rida, what is he doing to consistently sell over 100 cars a month? I mean, when you tell some people that have never heard of him, and by the way, he does hold the world record for the most cars sold in a single year. Whose record did he beat, Larry?
Joe Girard, and I think that's what killed Joe Girard, that he had to admit, and to his last dying day, he wouldn't admit that he got beat. He was into, Ali Rida is into personal rather than transactional deals. And Joe Girard also understood the concept that you find a way to get the job done, and stop saying it can, it's not possible, and just do what you have to do. Chris, I broke down the last month, and I hired an assistant to handle my emails. I was handling myself 500, 600, 700 emails a day because I'm in over 200 dealers as we speak, and I was answering all my calls. And I woke up one day and said, how am I going to maintain my reputation as being instantly, involved? So I hired a young lady to answer my phone. My 866 number that's in every ad runs into her phone and my phone. And I hired somebody to help me there. Because at some point, just like a general manager, you have to look in the mirror and say, what am I doing right? What am I doing wrong? And what I was doing right was I was on top of everything. I still look at everything. But I realized that in order to really be effective and give my customers what they deserved and what they expected, I had to have people around me to support, because I don't care how good you are, you can't answer your phone if you're training or you're on a plane. So Ali Rida took the concept and made it personal, and absolutely positively, Damien's a big believer in non-transactional deals, which is exactly how I feel. Again, you told Bill, let's get this guy on our podcast, but you can't tell him one substantive thing that I said because I didn't say anything substantial. When you hung up, you said, I like this guy's energy and he's fun. What's easier than that? When you understand that nothing is stronger than when a negative is overcome by a positive. And when people come into dealerships, they don't like us, they don't trust us, they have a negative perception. That's a huge opportunity to have them go, wow, you're really a nice guy for a car salesperson.
Yeah. Well, Maya Angelou, regardless of her politics, she said something quite compelling. And what she said was, people might not understand or remember what you said, but they'll certainly remember how you made them feel.
And do you know when she said that? Right after I had sold her a car. It's not commonly known. I made her take the warranty and everything else, but I hugged her. It was all fun.
Absolutely. Yeah, she was. Yeah, you got her full gross choke and croak in the whole 9 yards. Way to go.
Well, no, think about it. Now think about it. Okay, this is a message for all, aspiring car salespeople. Everybody that's ever been in the business for 3 minutes will agree that the people that overpay are happier than the people that underpay. So isn't it our humanitarian goal to make more people as happy as possible?
I agree.
Hey, Chris, this is when you start humming "We Are the World" behind me and Bill. It'll build up the dramatic emphasis.
That's right. We'll be swaying back and forth. No, but it's true. I mean, basically, the people, and from a sales professional standpoint, we sit up or jump out of our chair when one of our best customers walks on the lot. Now I know ups aren't as common as they once were, but we remember those deals, those good deals, those strong deals where we felt like we were properly compensated for the walk around we gave, for the delivery, for the follow through, the follow up. And when you've remembered someone's anniversary, birthday, child's birthday, holidays, religious significance, and they come back for a second or third vehicle, you remember them, they remember you. So I do believe in that reciprocity. If we feel well compensated, we want to do more. It's the act of doing more that makes them feel better cared for, and then they want to come back sooner. So it really is it's the circle of business life, in my opinion. And like I said before, profit's not a bad word, and you can't pour from an empty cup.
But most salespeople, if you want to edit this out, edit out, I don't care, have fallen out of the stupid tree and hit every branch on the way down. Okay. They don't understand the concept that when you can, and particularly if you're in a state where you can pay a referral fee, when you throw that on top of repeat referral, you can close at a rate of 70, 75%. I don't care if you're Joe Girard and Ollie, you're not going to close at 50% with dealing with strangers. It doesn't work that way. So you and I decide to go fishing, Chris. Would we go fishing in the place where there's tons of fish, or would we go to the famous lake that only has one catfish? He's 100 years old, he's got sneakers, and he's too fast for the line. You go where there's a lot of fish. It's not, none of this is complicated. We overcomplicate it. You know, we have to grasp that it's our business run within somebody else's with no debt service. I get young guys all the time. Yeah, I want to own a business. No, stupid. You want to work at this business for a multimillionaire and be his partner, only he'll never ask you to pay the floor plan or the electric bill. But that has to be your attitude.
The best salespeople in the business treat it as their own business. Absolutely. That's good.
There's a term for that. It's called intrapreneur. It's internal workings and mindset of an entrepreneur, to your point, without any overhead. It's taking ownership of the individual business that is their Rolodex or their higher gear or their CDK or whatever.
No, they're using. I just used to call it wealthy. It's 2 syllables. Most car salesmen can't handle entrepreneur. It's got too many syllables in it. Right? It's the old Dizzy Dean line. They criticized Dean. Dean was the best pitcher in baseball. He was the equivalent of a Sandy Koufax in his day. And in the All-Star game in 1938, Earl Averill hit a line drive off his foot and broke his toe. So he changed his pitching motion and ruined his arm. But he was the only guy more popular than him in baseball when these sports were boxing and baseball was Babe Ruth. So they made him an announcer. Well, the problem is he had left the 3rd grade to be an athlete, okay? And people slid into the base, and he said, ain't a lot. And the national school teachers put a petition together and said, Mr. Dean, you are a role model to children. Please stop saying ain't. He said, lady, it's the depression. A lot of people don't say ain't he? So once again, it's your approach to how you see this and what you're doing. If you get up in the morning, we talked about Thoreau. Most men lead lives of quiet desperation. If you get up in the morning and you ain't happy with what you're doing, what you look like, the shape you're in, the rest of it, change it. I'm not saying get rid of your kids, but it's your life, and you need to have your hands on the steering wheel.
Well said. Well said.
That was about 5 analogies in one, Chris. I'm going to have to double up what I'm charging you for this podcast. Oh, wait, what is 2 times 0? Oh, I'm bad with that. Like every salesman, it used to come up to me, and the sales tax was 6%. And the 47th time they came up and said, it's 10,000. What's the sales tax? It's 600, like it was yesterday. Again, we're back to the stupid tree.
Larry, what's going on in the car business right now?
Here's what's going on in the car business. A huge opportunity and a little bit of panic. The reason for the panic is because we were so profitable for several years, we got a little sloppy and we got a little lazy, and the salespeople got a little lazy. They pointed at the car and said it's 7,000 over. If you don't want it, that lady will take it. So that didn't require a whole lot of selling, didn't require a whole lot of foresight. It may not have looked down the road too carefully, trying to get people out of cars. But by the same token, we were certainly entitled to make a profit after years of getting beat up on invoice prices. You also have a rebound now that for a couple of years, interest rates were almost 0 and you didn't have any cars in your lot anyway. And now you've got a lot of cars in your lot and the interest rates are strangling. So you think you made a profit until you sit down with your controller and see what the car cost you by having it on the lot 34 days. And then, of course, on top of that, you throw in the EV debacle, because I happen to think EVs, if you want one, it's a great alternative. Hybrid's an even better alternative. But mandating that everybody drives electric and that the dealers, that's all they can sell, is similar to the government deciding drinking was immoral, so we're going to put prohibition. Doesn't work and it'll never work. And then you have Amazon and Hyundai. But you can go to any decade and you had that. In 73, you couldn't get gas and all the big American cars were in trouble. In 2008, you had the housing meltdown. Then you had manufacturers say to dealers, you're great, but we're putting you out of business. You always have things. You had World War II, World War I. It still comes down to, I'm from Philly, you're wearing your Georgia shirt. Great, and I'm a musician. I think you guys know that. The great Philadelphia singer Jerry Butler had a great song called Only the Strong Survive. So the guys that understand how to pull their people back, how to sit them in a room and explain what's going on, what's coming, how we're going to deal with it will be fine. And the guys that won't, they'll sell out the Auto Nation or something. But I'm very confident that anybody that's paying attention is going to do fine. It won't be easy, but usually to make a lot of money, it's not that easy, or else everybody will be rich. Correct, Chris?
That's right. That's right.
What do you know about AI, Larry?
I know, like every other tool, if it's used right, it can be extremely helpful. If it's used to augment what we can do and speed up what we're trying to do, determine equity mining, thing like that, it's great. If it's a substitute for people, it'll be a disaster, because I've never met any nerds, and I know a lot of nerds that like being put on hold and get 7 different prompts and then get hung up. People want to talk to people. Again, one of my edges is you get me. You call me, you get me. If you call and happen to get my assistant, oh, I want Larry, no problem. Here, I'll swing you right over. It's not complicated. It's like everything else. If we use it to strengthen what we do, speed up what we do, and augment, it'll be fine. If you're lazy and you throw it on and slap it in, and now it's going to take care of what your people were taking care of, I see it as a drastic mistake. And you can debate me all day long, you're going to lose, because it is. Think about the last time you had a problem with something, Bill, and you called what you hope would be a 7-minute call, and 3 hours later you were ready to kill somebody because you got transferred 92 times. You had to beg to talk to somebody. They wanted to give you prompts that you have to be a metaphysics engineer to understand. So it's like everything else. It's a good tool if you use it the right way. In the wrong hands, it'll be disastrous. Not to mention, you're hearing reports of people, getting pranked and saying that, it was my daughter's voice telling me I've been in an accident. So like everything else, listen, are you a boxing fan, Bill or Chris?
Yes.
Yes.
One of the smartest things you'll ever hear in life is the last 2 things that the referee says after he makes some touch gloves. He says, obey all my commands. And then he says, protect yourself at all times. Because if you get knocked out on a clinch, you're still knocked out. So like everything else, just watch your back, be careful, but don't be afraid to embrace new things and extract from them what can help you run your business.
That's good.
Hey, that sounded way too technical. Can we go back to talking about sports and me making fun of people?
It's okay with me. No, I will say though, it's progress, right? I mean, it's whether it's AI technology, hybrids or electric, the transfer portal in college football, these things are here to stay. And if you want to be the cranky get off my lawn guy and you're not willing to adapt or change or find a way to implement a strategy that makes sense within your integrity and adhering to your already firm core values, you're going to get left behind. You'll be passed and replaced fairly quickly. You can complain, you can vent, but the world's not going to slow down. I mean, one thing I know.
Bill, just to tell you how much I agree with you, my hero, and I'm not being facetious, is Ben Franklin. Ben Franklin is the most accomplished human being that has ever lived or ever will. Don't debate me, you'll lose. Okay? Discovered electricity. When Jefferson wrote the first declaration, it said we hold these truths sacred and self-evident. He crossed out sacred. He said we should have a separation of church and state. He brought the French into the war. We wouldn't have a country. And he was chasing women around Paris in the 70s. There was no Viagra back then. Ben was a hell of a guy. He said something because he was such an inventive thinker and such a curious person and so brilliant that it sounds like a Steve Jobs quote. He said in the 1700s, when you're finished changing, you're finished. So I'm with you 100%. Hey, do you guys remember when guys quit the business, when computers came in? I'm not messing with computers. Or when leasing came into vogue, it was too complicated. You got to be open. You got to be adaptable.
That's right. Change is constant.
Not the survival of the fittest. It's the survival of the most flexible. In my opinion.
Yeah. Well, the fittest too. Obviously, Bill's never played basketball. We'll talk about this after the show, Chris.
You can tell how tall I am from this podcast.
Bro,
my wife's 4'11". I look like a giant.
And I'm 5'7", and I don't shoot from 30. I go to the basketball. I talk about your mother. I'm from Philadelphia.
That's right, you do. That's right. Well, we'd be something special on a 6 foot and under team, I tell you.
Let's go, baby.
Larry, who's some of your modern inspirations? Who do you look to for inspiration, motivation?
How modern do they have to be, Chris?
Well, I know you're a history buff, but who are you listening to right now on Audible, or what books are you reading?
Anybody still alive?
He tried to insult me, Chris, but he doesn't realize I'm the youngest and I'm in the car business. You can't insult me. I'm like a cockroach. I just show up and I wiggle around a little bit. I like Elon Musk a lot. And the reason I like him is, besides making money and besides being a big believer in why not, not that we can't, why can't we? I love what he did with X, because if we don't understand the concepts of this country are built around freedom and states' rights, we're done. So here's a guy that wasn't just all about making money. Didn't get. I loved it that he told those guys F you, that, if you don't want to advertise with me. I really, I appreciate him, and I understand him, and I like him. I think I have a conundrum that a lot of people have, which is I always thought Donald Trump was obnoxious and annoying. Guess what? I voted for him, and I'm going to vote for him again. I don't want to have my buddy be the president. I want to have somebody with correct policies. So as much as he's annoying, I like him. And by the way, if he wasn't annoying, he would have never been president the first time. They would have grabbed Jeb Bush or something. He had to kind of rock the boat a little bit. I love music. It's beyond my passion. I have a band. We just recorded a new CD. We got a couple songs in a movie. How can you not admire Mick Jagger and Keith Richards and Paul McCartney? And by the way, Chris, if you're worried about eating microbiotics and drinking health juices and stuff, keep in mind that Keith Richards was a junkie for 15 years, an alcoholic and a chain smoker. Mick Jagger eats macrobiotic and runs 5 miles a day, and he's the one with the heart problem. So,
what kind of music?
Rock and roll. Just
Nice.
The band's called The Real Fugitives. Go to SoundCloud or YouTube or anywhere, and you'll see us. Just be surprised because the band kicks butt.
Damn. And you're in a movie? You got music?
It's a movie called Alice Meets the Vampire Queen. It's a B movie, but I got to tell you, not only was it entertaining, man, was it thrilling to see my music, up there on the screen. It was really cool.
I bet. That's cool. The Real Future.
The Stones are coming to. Sorry, Chris. The Stones
Stones
are coming.
They're coming everywhere. And I'll tell you what, the last show I saw of them, it was right after Jagger had the heart problem, was really good and better than the shows previously. Because everybody has Bruce Springsteen disease. They want to play for 3 hours. It's too long. Okay. My band plays for 3 hours. I get it. I got a ton of originals. I'm an energy freak, but because I guess Jagger's condition, they played for about 2 hours and they were right on the money. Because while the Beatles are the most creative group of musicians that will ever live, it was like Mozart and Beethoven in the same band. Your third best songwriter, George Harrison, wrote something, and Here Comes the Sun, and While My Guitar Gently Weeps. From 68 to 72, the Rolling Stones made better music than any rock and roll band has ever made or ever will make, starting with Jumpin' Jack Flash and Sympathy for the Devil, going through Honky Tonk Woman and Give Me Shelter, and those 2 great tours. So when they get to their core and they don't screw around too much, it's pretty hard to beat.
Yeah.
What's your top song? What's your favorite song with the Real Fugitives?
Oh, with my band, it's like having like 100 kids and saying which kid do you like the best. You know what? I'll tell you what, Chris, I'll put you on the spot. Go to SoundCloud and YouTube, and here's some of my stuff. And the next time I'm on, you tell me,
Well, I'm on YouTube. I wanted to check it out.
You know what? Check out. I just saw a video somebody put up. I Won't Be Lonely for Long. The Real Fugitives band. Man, did we play good that night?
So while he's doing that, I've got a question for you. A little retrospective. We've talked about where you come from, where you are, and where the business is going. I'm curious though, with the wealth of knowledge that you have, clear experience, a lot under your belt. If you were getting into the car business today, knowing what you know today, what would you do?
The only thing that I would do differently in my career was I would have started the training aspect earlier. I went to see Joe Verdi and his guys, and they were really good. And my general manager was digging me in the ribs the whole time and said, "Man, why don't you do something like that? You're funnier than these guys, and you got more energy." That would be the only change I would do. It's the old Robert Frost thing. I came upon 2 paths in the woods, took the one less traveled, and that has made all the difference. Everything has a consequence. So if you change one aspect of your life, who knows what other variants you're going to see or what road it's going to lead you on. But I made a lot of friends, made some dough. I had a lot of fun. The only thing I would do is I jump into this quicker because I'm having so much fun doing this. And it's so satisfying to make people better, make myself better, get them jobs. So I think that would be the only deviation. I always came into it with a positive attitude. Everybody that ever got out of the car, I knew I was selling them. I was always smiling. If you were my customer, Bill, I took you more seriously than I took myself, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely. Kind of like Yogi said, when you get to the fork in the road, take it.
Take it. Man, did you see the movie on him, the documentary they put out?
It's awesome.
Man, it's tough when you're a grown man and you're crying over a squat bow-legged catcher, but I was crying at the end of that movie.
It was, I learned so much. I knew very little about his actual story. I knew him as a character. I knew him as a pitch man. I certainly read his quotes or quasi quotes. We don't. I learned
Can I
that
can I
you don't
can I
even
help
know.
you win? Can I help you win a bet in a bar when you're in New York? The
Sure.
guy that won the most championships with the Yankees is Yogi Berra. It's not DiMaggio, it's not Gehrig, it's not Ruth, it's not Mantle, it's Berra. And him and Roy Campanella, obviously in the different leagues, were MVP, each of them 3 times in the 50s. When you had some magnificent ball players. How could anybody be more valuable than Willie Mason?
Yeah, I get it. No, yeah. And when you think of the perfect games, I mean, those were as attributable to Yogi as anyone. He was never shaken off.
No.
Larry, you're walking a dangerous path. Bill Courtwright is the biggest baseball fan. Y'all going to start talking for hours here. Listen to this.
It's all right. We can't hear you. You're playing through the headphones.
You can't hear it?
No, that's all right. We'll dub it in later.
Yeah.
Sounds pretty damn good, doesn't it, Chris?
I won't be lonely for long. Now, this was from 7 years ago. Have y'all performed that recently?
We're going to be playing it on the 23rd of December when we play at a club in New Hope, Pennsylvania. We're playing,
Nice.
We're kicking butt, and we're better now than we were 7 years ago.
Wow. That's cool. That's awesome. Man, that's
In fact, this year I'm even going to try to get some humility for the holidays, but I'm not sure. I tried it last year and it didn't work out.
So, Chris, you got a final question for Larry?
Yeah, well, I mean, what do you think the future holds for the 2024? What's the political, automotive economy? What do you think?
Well, right now, I'm just going to be very straightforward with you. We absolutely have the wrong people in power in Washington. There's no debate. If you want to debate me, the morality of abortion, you're a Catholic, this or that, I get it. I'm with you. I understand. But there is no debate about shutting off gas and letting everybody else in the world use gas, a lot of them who are enemies. We are the only country in the world that doesn't have a border. We have an army as China grows up and wants to take over the world that is so worried about nonsense and virtue signaling that we don't have guys that want to fight. How do you throw guys out of the army because they don't want to take a shot? When it's the youngest, healthiest guys, we're the least susceptible to have any problem. So politically, and if anybody doesn't like it, that's your problem. We need to get some conservatives in. And I'm not saying Republicans are perfect, but they're not insane like the other party. As far as the car business will be fine. It'll go through some fits and starts. Amazon's not going to take over the whole world. We just have to get better and smarter and get better training and re-emphasize on our purpose. I always love to say it. If you have a dog and you point, your dog never looks where you're pointing. He looks at your finger. We got to be looking ahead and go for there. And that's it. We've got some dangerous, difficult times aside and ahead of us. But you could probably said that, for the last 200 years, right? There's always something that we're dealing with. But yeah. I think we're going to be just fine. I'm an optimist. I don't see the point of going into things and being negative.
Yep, I agree.
Wow.
Agreed.
Well,
That's a good assessment. Larry, enjoyed the time we had today. Thank you so much for coming on today and sharing your words of wisdom and all your stories. Cool stuff.
It was a pleasure. And if anybody needs really fun training that can make their people better, if they need sales, I'm the only guy on the planet these days that's finding techs, and I'm cheaper than a headhunter. If you need people, great. If there's any guys that are friend of yours and they leave a dealership, run a couple guys over on the way out, because I like to be proactive in my recruiting. It's better when there's a need. I would appreciate that. And it was just a pleasure talking to you two guys. Aaron was kind enough to jump on my Lethal Sales podcast. He's a pleasure too. I appreciate the friendship. Anytime you want to talk. And Bill, you got my cell number. You ever want to talk baseball? I'm right with you, my buddy.
Oh, and I will. And listen, Larry, we're gonna invite you on again. I have a feeling we could talk for hours, but out of respect for the listeners and viewers, we'll try to keep this under 45 minutes. On behalf of Chris Snellgrove and myself and the entire team here at Reputation Sensei by Digital Media Nation, we'd like to thank Larry Feldman. We're going to make sure we have everything linkable in the show notes. You'll be able to find Larry in Career Changers. And if you need to reach out or you're looking to move or jump ship, he's a guy you should know. Thank you very much.
Healthy holidays to everybody.
Thank you.
Cool.
That's all for this episode of the Sensei Playbook. May these strategies help you build a powerful business roadmap and dominate the online marketplace right now. Be sure not to miss another episode jam-packed with valuable advice from our marketing martial artists, Bill and Chris, by subscribing to the podcast at podcast.reputationsensei.com. Don't forget to share with your friends and fellow entrepreneurs who also aspire for massive business success. Thank you for listening. Until next time.